Good to be here. Always good to be here. Welcome to another episode of Matt's Art Chat. On this episode, I speak with musician Eric Pan, who's a great pianist and composer, and he particularly specializes in a type of music that could be defined as transportive music. And I think you would agree, and we talk about that. We talk about what that means, and we talk about why he is interested in making this type of music. We also talk about some of his recent projects. And we talk about how he is reacting to the current situation that we're living in with the coronavirus pandemic and quarantine, and how it's sort of kind of encouraging and in a way forcing him to experiment with new ways in which he can express his creativity but also communicate his creativity to the people. And I maintain that that artists right now are vitally important because they have a sensibility that allows us to understand the situation that we're living in a different way from the news and the media that tends to be a little more aggressive and very confusing, so we talk about that. We talk about, for example, one of his most recent projects is particularly interactive, and so it was really interesting to find out more about it. So it was great to chat with him because I met him this time last year in Berlin. And we actually filmed a video conversation for my Matt's Long Take series, which, if you are listening or watching this podcast, then and you're interested in what we're saying, there's more to listen to than on my YouTube channel. Eric, just type in Eric Pan, Matt's Long Take, and there's more for you to listen to. So it was great to chat with him again, and. But in any case, I hope that you're doing well. I hope that you're in the right frame of mind, and I hope that life is treating you well. It's slipping you some M&Ms in the pocket of your jacket, preferably the blue ones or the red ones. They all taste the same, but visually, I think they're more appealing, at least to me. What else? I just wanted to say one more thing. I started recording a radio show that's called The Art Movement. Recorded on a weekly basis and publish it on Sundays on my personal website, inartematt.com. That's INARTEMATT.com. Inartematt. And it's a radio show that's about art and culture, and I also play a lot of music, a lot of great kind of a varied range of music. I can't talk today, but I've tried to record this introduction so many times, and I don't know, maybe I'm distracted by that. Very hard for me to focus. But if you want to check that out, I'm trying to get this show on actual terrestrial radio stations, just because I think it would be so cool if I had a radio show that was playing on terrestrial radio. It just seems so cool to me. And I so far only have one that's going to play the show on Saturday mornings in 4 counties of Ireland, none of which are my home county of Galway. But you can't always get what you want. But if you try sometimes, you get what you need. I think Gandhi said that. Anyways, I hope you enjoy my conversation with Eric Pan. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay strong, and stay out of trouble. Enjoy.
Hello.
Hello, Eric.
Hey, Matt.
How are you? How's it going?
I'm doing well. It's it's a beautiful day, which I can see from inside my window.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're also quarantined, I take it.
Yeah, it's really like the days are just getting more and more beautiful each day. I'm in Berlin, and it's super sunny right now, and spring's just coming in. And actually, our courtyard here has a gigantic cherry blossom tree, so it's kind of nice, but it's also promising a world that cannot be engaged with fully.
Yeah, that's one of the tragedies of the moment right now. And well, first of all, you're in Berlin now, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Basically, it's been a year since we first met.
So crazy.
Yeah, time flies. And one of the things I remember is that you hadn't been in Berlin very long, and that you were looking for plants to put in your flat. So I was going to ask you, how is that little project going?
It's good. Yeah, they're coming along. There's like a small collection growing, and sometimes they seem to flourish, and other times I'm really clueless about what's happening and why some of them aren't happy. So it's like I'm learning as I go.
Hmm. So you've got nature basically in your flat right now.
I do, as you saw from before, there's like some birch trees kind of propped up everywhere, and yeah, there's like there's more live plants. Got some stuff hanging down from the walls, and
Yeah.
yeah,
You got a lot of
continuing.
nature in the flat. And I always think that, plants and other living organisms are blissfully unaware of the chaotic situation that's happening all around us. What is the situation there in Berlin?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because we get to see, or even just like hear anecdotally, how the decrease in human activity in a lot of places has kind of brought like a little bit of rewilding. Like there was a friend in Los Angeles who was saying that there's just that his dog was going crazy because all the coyotes are coming out now and they're just everywhere. And in Berlin, it's actually kind of alarmingly normal when you go outside, if that makes any sense, because there's still a lot of people, and there's rules about not going out in more than groups of two, and you'll get fined if you're not out for a good reason, like for essential errands or stuff like that. But there's still like activity. I haven't really seen like empty streets and stuff. Yeah, so I'm not sure, but I do know that just everyone is trying to stay home, like from friends, like no one's meeting each other in person, and you definitely feel the effects. And there's no going out except for stuff that's like um, that needs to be done.
How do you feel personally about it? Like, are you worried or?
I think that I'm worried just in an abstract sense because maybe like a lot of people, I've been having my attention glued to the news and seeing what's happening and just hearing about how the places that are really having this under control, it seems to be like they're super on top of it, and they're really like I get news from my mom in Taiwan where they really like December 31st, they started restrictions. And when you go inside a building, there's people checking your temperature, and there's just testing everywhere. And I don't see that like personally here. So in a sense, I'm worried that like it's possible for things to get bad because I'm not seeing that there's like empty streets and people really taking this like with like super strict seriousness. But I'm very lucky that it's not a fear that's come into my life in terms of like daily living. I feel like from I feel like I have the space to kind of like do my thing, because I kind of feel like we froze time and forced everyone to be here in this moment. And like for some people, that's a huge burden because they are society's caretakers, like people in the hospital, people like delivery, everyone who's like working in a bank. But for others who have a little bit more like just the fortune to have space, there's still like a confrontation with the self, like the choices that we've made, and like what we're doing with our time. And I think that's true like on the individual level as well as for whole countries. But in that sense, I welcome that aspect of it, just like to be a little more inward and intentional about the stuff I'm doing. And in that way, it's not a source of I guess alarm or panicking, but actually like there's some opportunity in there to see
Do
what's
you feel like
possible.
it's in a sense positively impacted your creativity?
Oh man, I think so. It's hard to see like outside of myself. Like the I feel like a lot of things have had to suddenly shift. And in a sense, yes, like the challenges posed by suddenly like not going out, not being able to play live, not being able to travel makes like okay, all these plans that I had, just like for everyone else, they become canceled, and it becomes like, well, what is possible now? And then hopefully solutions can be found. And so for me, yes, I've started doing stuff that's like different from before, and I I don't know if it's more creative though. So I guess maybe we'll have to see if that's true.
Did you have to, like, because you're a musician and you mentioned that you had to change your plans a bit, did you have to cancel any travel plans for concerts, or did you have anything scheduled for this time, for this period?
Exactly. Actually, it was almost a complete shutdown because, yeah, touring and I mean, any live gigs, but then also like studio recording sessions get canceled, and then even private lessons were like, actually, it's not smart. You know, like technically we could do a one-on-one lesson, but it's not responsible and it's not technically allowed. So let's just not do it. So all of everything really got canceled, and actually I had like an album release also planned for now to start, like not just to put music online, but actually do the campaign where like there was stuff where it involved physically putting stuff like outside, like I built a phone booth that's supposed to be kind of like a teleportation device for people to go inside and be transported by music. And so I was going to bring that around town, and eventually it can kind of roam around town. But you know, stuff like that that's in person and that can't happen now. So the whole album release is also like the whole strategy has changed.
Must have been
And so
heartbreaking
yeah,
though, right? It must have been heartbreaking.
yeah, I think it's one of those things where like there's an initial shock. You know, you have all this stuff planned. You have like I'm sitting, you've seen my place, like there's these trees, but now they're like surrounding a two and a half meter tall phone booth that's just hanging out. That is it's like a mini installation that's for this project. And so there's a shock when all of this happened. It's like, wow, I can't do all of this. But then I think after the initial shock, thankfully there's been space to be like, well, you know what is possible now. And I think there's like alternative solutions that, like you say, it's possible that they could be more creative, and maybe down the line it'll be cool to look back and say like, yeah, actually that was a nice way for things to happen because it enabled us to go in this different direction, and that was cool.
Now, this album that you're talking about, and just this even this phone booth, is it part of the project that you'd been talking with me about last year about stories and traveling?
Yeah, that's right. It's called Travel Poems, and it's really like it's based around it's based around stories, although that like in the music it's like soundscapes and then songs, like it's pretty introspective. And so kind of like different people who were involved in the making of it, we were like there were various conversations we were having as this as the quarantining started, saying that like actually this music is kind of in a weird way uh, it fits this moment because the whole idea is about how music transports us, and in like the soundscapes transport us, and this whole theme of like having music as a gateway to go places when we can't physically go places is kind of interesting. And so we started really thinking about, okay, like let's just release the first third because it's in three chapters. Let's just do the first third like now, and and yeah, you and I were talking about it, and there was all this element of like in-person stuff, like the live storytelling, and yeah, like those parts can't happen, but I think other parts can happen. So
So you're thinking of like alternative ways in which you can still make it happen.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, we want to release the first chapter out of three, and then ask people for stories, and then the plan is to weave people's stories into the music with the release of the second and third parts. And at that point, hopefully, the phone booth can start physically traveling. Also, maybe.
That's really cool. So where does the idea for the phone booth come from?
Oh my God. I think I'm thinking like stuff like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Doctor Who, Doctor Who.
Doctor Who, that's right, Doctor Who. Yeah, like there's kind of these like in the culture things where you go inside a normal looking device, like Superman, and then it takes you, and then it transforms you, or it takes you to a place, and maybe that's where it comes from.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about that is that the phone booth itself as an object seems to be like part of a different planet nowadays because we're all using phones, Yeah, our mobile phones. So the world
Yeah,
is, it
exactly.
seems like it was a long time ago. I used to actually collect the cards that you'd use on the payphone in the payphones, but so I'm personally attached to them. Do you have a personal attachment to maybe that world, not specifically phone booths, but something that they represent?
Oh my God, I think so. I think it's somewhere like, past a certain age, we grew up with these things like around us, so they're like embedded in our awareness, even though you don't see them anywhere, and so you don't like, in a way, we don't really notice they're missing as much as if you were using them all the time. But it's like absolutely, they hold a certain magic because it's such a physical experience of going inside like an enclosed space where it's just like it can only fit you and like maybe one other person, and like what that does to the feeling of being connected to someone on a phone is really powerful. Like it reminds me of the people set up these like phone lines right after 9/11 in New York. They set up phone lines to talk to people like across the world, and you could have a live conversation, and you could pick up a physical phone receiver at the site of the World Trade Center and make this connection with someone real that was going through something, and they were in a completely different culture. And that is so fascinating to me because the physicality of it, of like picking up a device and being there, is that's super powerful.
And do you think that like you can replicate that type of experience, say, when you're sitting at on your piano, like abstractly, that type of emotion or feeling when you're sitting and just playing, you're interacting with your instrument?
Yeah, I think you touch on something that's really getting at the core of where some of these ideas sprouted from, because originally travel poems was the fact that I had written the songs in different places, and they were like kind of representing the places for me, like as personal stories. And at a certain point, it became the idea to want to share the transporting with other people. But actually, yes, it started with like, okay, I'm making this music, and it takes me somewhere. I am somewhere different. It takes me somewhere. And also, just for me, like the idea of making music is a transportive experience. So yeah, it's all interconnected in that way.
Can you tell me, like off the top of your head, an experience that you've recently had, perhaps in these days of quarantine, that was transportive but not music related?
Wow. It's probably come. Yeah, the thing that comes to mind is through reading. I was reading Pliny the Elder, and it's a collection of writings about the natural world, and and this is ancient Greece, and so this is like describing. I mean, there's such a variety in what he wrote about, but like just even reading about like the plants and animals that through his eyes of ancient Greece, it was unavoidable the experience of actually like imagining those surroundings and imagining this climate, imagining the culture, and imagining like the perspective he had and what, how that could be possible, which I think is kind of crazy because, well, I don't know, I think about these things a lot about like the different types of experiences that are possible through different mediums of art, whether they're like writing or like painting or music. It seems like there's different possibilities and there's like subtle variations. I
Hmm.
think about that a lot.
Do you feel like you are connected with nature?
I think I am like not so much. I think that I have a longing to be connected with nature, but that it feels that like it become this the answer to this question becomes really clear to me when I go into nature, especially like total wilderness, and then I'm confronted with this sense of awe, and actually, funnily enough, I'm confronted with like the aesthetic experience, like they talk about in philosophy, which they talk about in reference to like they talk about it in reference to experiencing art, but like the confrontation with nature, I feel there, and then that's when I feel like, oh my God, I've been missing this connection, and I don't really realize it until I'm there, because just being in a city from day to day, like having city concerns and deadlines and stuff, I don't realize it, even though I know that it's a nice thing to experience, and actually a profound thing to experience. I don't know. I don't know. How do you feel about that? Are you connected?
You know, I never cared for it until maybe I turned 20, and now, especially like with just my awareness of animal welfare, I feel like more and more. In fact, one of my favorite things to do these days is watch videos of like animals, that would be considered wild animals that have been rescued from places like fur farms, and just how they get to live a privileged life, but a different life from what they were intended to live. I don't know why, but it's like that's how I can escape the madness that I would probably otherwise be sucked into with all the news and all of that stuff. So I'm definitely fascinated with nature, but I'm not sure that I would survive within nature, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, me either. Yeah. No, I don't know about survival.
Are you watching the news, or are you trying to stay away from it?
I'm drawn to it like a moth to a flame right now. It's so hard to just, okay, I'm gonna turn it off. I'm gonna like be not not engaged even just for like half a day. It's hard because it's, the everything is moving so fast, and also I feel a little bit I don't know, that it's like we're all kind of connected during this time in a way, even if it's just made up in my head, and I feel like, oh, I want to know what people, I was living in New York for a while, and like what are people doing up to there, and not just my friends, but also just like how is the city coping, and so yeah, I'm kind of glued to the news for better or worse.
Yeah. And do you feel like the discourse also is something that is influencing your creative work at the moment? Maybe when you're recording or playing music?
Yes, I think so. There is a maybe in a more deliberate way. I've just started a series, a songwriting series, where I'm asking people to give me a subject, um, to give me something to write a song about. It can be anything, and if they're an artist, it can be one of their works. And I'm calling it one muse a day, and they are like, it's really like it's a super huge range of what people are interested in, and some of them are related to this time. like a friend of mine, I asked him to give me something to write a song about, and um, he said the invasion of Libya, and I this is actually a political subject I didn't know much about, so like we had to talk about it a whole bunch before I felt ready to write a song about it. And then there's other people that like it's just in their personal lives, like their relation to sleep in this time, and so that is a subject for a song too. But then like some of them are super topical, and then some not necessarily so. But I think that through that, I'm definitely confronting like um, what is the experience of living in this time, even if it's like through trying to be through the eyes of someone else, but still that's like kind of a confrontation with the moment.
That's so interesting what you're saying. What so this is this series something that you're live streaming or just recording on your own?
Yeah, actually both.
Oh,
You know, it's well, I shouldn't say live streaming, but it because the videos are edited, but they go up like the next day after I make the song. Except, yeah, so actually no, not live streamed, but it's as we talk, I'm like about to put up the first one, so it's kind
wow.
so it's yeah, it's fun.
So this is like a project that was born out of this difficult time that we're living through. That was what you were saying, just trying to kind of understand how you can still work and be creative and you can still produce. I know it's a terrible word, but like produce stuff
Yeah,
during
yeah,
these
right.
times, right? So it's prompting you to kind of experiment things.
It totally is. That's true. Yeah, it's really like also how to like be connected with people on an individual level and like reach out and say like, hey, what do you care about? Like, and like let's find some way to have a musical experience like
Yeah.
that's connected to that because yeah, that would be cool.
Where are you uploading these videos?
Oh, it's gonna be on YouTube. Yeah, so it'll be on
Okay.
my YouTube.
Oh, I'll make sure to check that out.
Awesome.
That's really cool. And no, I mean it's like it is like you're saying another way in which you can interact, but it also sounds like you're trying to look for collaborators in this sense. Like you're trying to look for people to share this whole kind of working process with, like creative process with.
Yeah, exactly. I think that it's super cool to have those like cross pollination discussions. Like one of my one quote unquote muses was a photographer, and so he gave me a photo to write a song about, which for me is like just a cool idea to like the idea of scoring a still image as opposed to like a film. I love that idea, and so it's kind of a cross collaboration already. But then even for non artists, it's just like, what do you care about? Like let's make music about it. So absolutely.
And how do you feel like do you in while you're doing this do you feel like other people are also looking for that type of engagement and collaboration, especially now? I mean, do you feel that there's also a need from their part to be involved in something like this?
Yeah, I think so. I think especially for people who are like in a creative field, because like a filmmaker can't go outside so much to do something, not like before, and musicians are looking for something to do, and like whoever has a little bit of free time, I think there's a restlessness because we're also missing out on human connection. Like even for like the introverts out there, I think like there's a sense of like, well, yeah, but you know, even the little amount of like real connection that you get with someone is missing. So however we can do to to not replace that, but just, you know, to, I don't know, address that would be is nice.
So are you also working with video? Like, are you shooting the videos yourself?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I set up a
Oh.
little, I don't know, a setup in my home to do it. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
because
not
like
sophisticated.
what what I understood even when we were talking last year is that you like to experiment with other art forms as well as music.
Yeah, yeah, and that's true. I feel like I'm super new to video stuff. I'm definitely new to making videos. Like, there was a video series we were gonna do with the travel poems, like the phone booth, like being out in cities, and hopefully we can still do that. But like already that was like a pretty new thing. And then types of things with me at home with music is also super new. Like I discovered I'm very unfamiliar with like looking at a camera and like interacting with the camera as if it were an audience, and so I'm super like confronted with that now. But yeah, but it's nice. Like I think it's something actually to work on. So yeah, it's a good opportunity.
Yeah, how much do you feel like that desire to keep learning fuels your creativity or your creative processes or different projects?
I think it's huge. I think it comes, that's like a root driving force, and also also like a something that causes a lot of frustration for me too, because just even practicing piano right now, like I'm constantly thinking like, oh, how do I practice better and how do I make the process better? Like parts of it feel like, oh, I want to improve this process because it's not working well enough. And so I'm yeah, I feel like I'm perpetually on the hunt for discovering new things, and yeah.
Where do you feel that desire comes from or that all that energy comes from just to learn?
Gosh, I don't know. Well, actually, I mean, I feel like I could only guess. I'm not sure I'm so like able to have that level of self-awareness to drill down to where that comes from, but maybe just because I grew up all over, and so there's a certain maybe an alertness that comes from self-preservation. Just like
Oh.
I want to understand, my surroundings and how things are working in order to just like feel that I feel that I can have space to think without without too much I don't know, uncertainty.
Yeah. I recently watched an interview by Marlon Brando, and he defined acting as a survival mechanism, and he made an argument that we're all actors and we act to survive in our everyday life. What do you think about what he says with those words? Would you agree with that?
Wow, I think that's super interesting. And I think it's really interesting when, like, you hear certain celebrities say, or I mean, like people in the acting space that, like, they're like known people that other people recognize. Like, some people say, like, they only feel comfortable on stage. Like, that's where that's their element, and they're actually uncomfortable or less comfortable outside. For me, I think that yes, in public there is a, it's like unavoidable for me to feel an awareness that that I'm out in public. So that probably leads to some kind of like persona that I have. But I think over time my inner like private self and my outer public persona become more converged, and being outside also feels more natural. Yeah, I think it's just I think that's the path I'm on, because when I was a kid I was pretty shy, and like just I felt like I didn't have the tools to really know how to express myself. And as time goes on, I continually push for that to be less of a cognitive dissonance. So I just don't want to feel discomfort. So I want to figure out how to be comfortable with people outside, and not necessarily acting, but just figuring out how to express myself in a way that feels natural without too much effort.
That's interesting. So, do you feel like maybe this eagerness to learn and just to embark on different projects is also a way for you to learn who you are, and to get to know yourself?
Oh yeah, I think that's probably true. It's got to be true.
Yeah.
It's.
So,
I hope so.
do you feel like you know yourself well now?
Oh my God, this is like yeah, you're like putting your foot in the stream and like trying to gauge like how the water is like how the water like sees itself or something. I don't know. It's because I feel like yes, at this point I'm more self-aware than like compared to before, but how do we know how long the journey goes? Like there's always more, and you know, like in several years or 10 or 20 years, like I could be like, oh my God, it's so crazy how unaware and blind I was. I mean, probably that's inevitable. So, I mean, I look forward to having that feeling.
Ah, yeah. Eric, well, we've been talking for over half an hour and it was certainly a great pleasure. Thank you very much for doing this. And let me know how I can contribute to this project. I would love to submit a story that might
Oh
inspire a
yeah,
piece of
cool.
music of yours.
That sounds great. Let's do it.